Sometimes in the quiet corners of our lives, we forget the melody of our own worth. We run toward people, places, and promises that were never meant to hold us, believing that movement is the same as progress. But I have learned, through storms, through silence, through the rising of my own spirit, that you do not find your power by chasing what tries to leave. You find it by standing tall, rooted in who you are, letting the world come to you in its own honest time. Today, I want to remind you of a truth as old as the sun. When you know your value, you attract what honors it. When you stand still in your strength, life shifts, bends, turns, and delivers exactly what belongs to you. There comes a moment in every life when you must pause long enough to hear the truth beating in your own chest. Your worth is not a bargain to negotiate. It is not something to discount when someone overlooks you, nor something to question when the world grows quiet around you. Your worth is a truth to honor, a certainty that does not bend simply because someone else refuses to see it. Too many people spend their days running after those who refuse to slow down for them. They chase validation, affection, approval, hoping that if they run fast enough, if they try hard enough, they will finally be chosen. But the tragedy of that chase is not in losing the person, it is in losing yourself along the way. When you treat your worth like something that can be bartered, you shrink every time someone does not give you what you hoped for. You make their opinion the measure of your value, and honey, no soul was ever born to live that small. You deserve more than crumbs of attention tossed in your direction. You deserve more than love that only shows up when it is convenient. You deserve to stand in your own skin and feel at home there without needing anyone else to validate the beauty you carry. The moment you stop running after what refuses to make room for you is the moment you begin to rise. When you stop chasing, you start choosing. You choose peace over chaos. You choose dignity over desperation. You choose to honor the quiet truth that has lived inside you long before anyone ever doubted it. You are enough, all on your own. And when you stand in that truth, the world does not shrink, it expands. Opportunities find you. The right people notice you. Life opens its hands because you finally opened your eyes. Let me tell you something gentle and honest. What is meant for you does not need to be hunted down. What is meant for you will recognize your spirit the moment it meets you. It will not ask you to run yourself tired, nor will it demand pieces of you in exchange for a little attention. What is meant for you will walk toward you, not away from you. It will meet you with respect, with clarity, with a steady hand that does not tremble when times grow difficult. When you stop chasing, you give life permission to show you what you deserve. You allow people to reveal whether they wish to stand beside you or drift away. You allow destiny to flow instead of forcing it. And most importantly, you allow your soul to breathe again. Because chasing is exhausting, but attracting comes from a place of peace. It comes from knowing who you are, knowing what you carry, and knowing that you do not have to beg for what is already yours. There is a certain peace that settles in your life the moment you accept that you do not have to chase what is not trying to stay. For a long time, many of us believe that effort alone can hold a person, opportunity, or dream in place. We pour ourselves into things that barely acknowledge us, believing that if we give just a little more, if we stretch ourselves a little thinner, eventually the world will turn around and face us. But life has a way of teaching us that anything which is meant for us does not need to be begged for, pushed for, or chased down. What is meant for you will not turn its back when you reach out. It will not walk away when you speak your truth. It will come toward you with clarity, with steadiness, with a willingness to stay. When something is truly aligned with your spirit, it doesn't confuse you. It doesn't leave you guessing or doubting your own worth. It does not keep you suspended in that lonely space between hope and fear. And yet, so many people spend years waiting for someone to turn around, someone who has already shown their back, their disinterest, or their inability to appreciate what stands in front of them. We forget that love, opportunity, and peace all have something in common. They move toward those who stand with open hands, not those who are running after ghosts. The truth is, when a person, a job, or a dream turns its back, it is not always a sign of rejection. Sometimes it is the universe's gentle way of saying, this is not your path, this is not your season, this is not your home. And though it may hurt, though it may feel like loss, it is often a quiet form of protection. Because what is meant for you will never make you beg for space in its life. What is meant for you will not demand that you shrink so it can stand taller. It will find you, not because you ran behind it, but because you walked in your truth and allowed your life to be open to better things. When you stop chasing, your energy shifts. You no longer attract situations built on fear or desperation. Instead, you begin to invite relationships and opportunities grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and genuine connection. When you trust that what belongs to you will come toward you, you begin to carry yourself differently. You become calmer, clearer, more confident. You learn to release what walks away and welcome what moves toward you. That shift alone can change the entire direction of your life. And remember this, what is meant for you is not intimidated by your strength, your standards, or your voice. It does not hide from your truth. It welcomes it. It embraces it. It sees you not as a burden, but as a blessing. So let life unfold without forcing it. Let people reveal who they are without chasing after their potential. Trust that what belongs to you will not turn its back. It will walk toward you in its own time, in its own honest way, with open arms meant only for you. There comes a time when you must learn the quiet strength of being still. The world often tells us that movement equals progress, that noise equals significance, that constant effort proves worth. But life has also shown me that some of the strongest people are the ones who know how to stand still without losing themselves. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It is about refusing to scatter your energy in 100 different directions just to feel productive. It is about knowing that you do not have to chase validation, attention, or reassurance to feel real. Stillness is choosing to stand where you are, steady and sure, trusting that what aligns with your truth will find its way to you. We live in a time where people believe urgency is power. They rush into relationships, chase after opportunities, and jump into situations that do not honor them. They are afraid that if they pause, if they breathe, if they wait, life will forget them. But the truth is, nothing that is meant for you can pass you by simply because you took a moment to gather yourself. What passes you by was never yours to begin with, and what belongs to you will not disappear because you chose patience over panic. Stillness teaches you this. It teaches you that your value does not depend on how loudly you move, but on how deeply you know yourself. When you stand grounded, people feel it. They sense a confidence that does not shout but speaks through presence. They notice that your choices are intentional, your reactions thoughtful, your energy calm. Grounded people attract differently because they are not seeking approval. They are simply living in alignment. And alignment is magnetic. It draws the right people, the right chances, the right paths. Not because of effort, but because of clarity. When you know who you are, you stop running toward everything that glitters. You wait for what is real. Stillness also gives you the gift of seeing things for what they truly are. When you are constantly in motion, your vision blurs. You accept situations that drain you because you never stop long enough to recognize the weight. But when you pause, even for a moment, you begin to understand what supports you and what only uses you. You learn the difference between what pushes you forward and what pulls you down. That awareness becomes a quiet kind of power, one that cannot be taken from you. The people who chase everything rarely receive anything lasting. But the people who stand in themselves, who hold their center, who refuse to bend just to be accepted, these are the people who attract relationships built on respect, opportunities built on truth, and lives built on purpose. So do not be afraid of stillness. Do not mistake it for weakness. There is power in being able to say, I will not run, I will remain. I will trust that what is meant for me knows how to find me. When you stand grounded in who you are, life does not pass you by. Life begins to meet you exactly where you stand. There comes a point when you must understand that chasing someone or something never guarantees you will keep it. In fact, the very act of chasing often confirms that it was never yours in the first place. When you run after people, approval, or acceptance, you place your worth in their hands. You start believing that your value depends on their willingness to choose you. But the truth is simpler than we allow ourselves to accept. If you have to chase it, you've already lost something, your peace, your dignity, or your sense of self. And the moment you stop running, you begin to reclaim all the pieces you gave away in the process of trying to be enough for someone who never bothered to look closely. Chasing drains the soul. You start bending your boundaries, adjusting your standards, and silencing your needs just to keep something from slipping away. You become afraid of losing what you never actually had, and that fear clouds your judgment. You confuse effort with connection, persistence with love, and anxiety with attachment. But when you finally step back, when you finally stop reaching for what keeps its distance, you start to see the truth. If something walks away when you stop chasing, it was never meant to stay, and letting it go is not your loss, it is your liberation. The moment you choose self-respect over desperation, everything in your life shifts. Self-respect is quiet, but it is powerful. It tells the world that you know your value, that you honor your boundaries, and that you will not settle for treatment that diminishes you. When you live with self-respect, you attract differently. You draw in people who understand your worth instead of questioning it. You invite relationships where your voice matters, where your presence is valued, where your heart is safe. Respect becomes a filter that removes the people who only showed up for convenience and keeps the ones who come with intention. The beauty of self-respect is that it never asks you to chase. It teaches you that what belongs in your life will stay without being begged for. It teaches you that love, opportunities, and genuine connections walk toward those who walk in their truth. You stop trying to convince anyone to choose you because you finally understand that real love, real friendship, and real opportunity do not require convincing. They require authenticity. They require honesty. They require you to be yourself, not a watered-down version created to impress someone who doesn't even see you. When you attract from a place of self-respect, you gain more than just good people or better moments. You gain alignment. You gain peace. You gain a life that feels like it fits you instead of one you keep chasing after. You gain everything that recognizes your worth and nothing that drains your spirit. And once you experience that kind of life, the one built on self-respect, not self-sacrifice, you will never again waste your energy chasing anything that refuses to slow down for you. There comes a time in every person's life when they must recognize the quiet damage that comes from trying too hard to belong. So many people spend years squeezing themselves into spaces that were never meant to hold them, trying to earn approval from people who barely offer understanding, trying to be accepted by groups that do not value the honesty of who they are. You start convincing yourself that if you act a little different, talk a little softer, hide a little more of your truth, maybe then you will be welcomed. But belonging that requires you to beg for it is not belonging at all. It is an emotional negotiation that leaves you emptier than when you began. When you beg to belong, you teach others how to treat you. You show them that your needs can be overlooked, that your boundaries can be crossed, that your presence can be taken for granted. You become someone who is tolerated instead of appreciated. And what hurts the most is not how people treat you, but how you start seeing yourself through their limited vision. You begin to forget the strength you came from, the dignity you carry, and the value you were born with. You start believing you're lucky just to be allowed in the room, when in truth you were worthy of your own seat at the table all along. But the moment you stop asking for a place to belong, something shifts. You reclaim your voice. You stand up straighter. you begin to understand that belonging is not something the world gives you. It is something you find within yourself first. Choosing yourself does not mean you are selfish. It means you finally recognize that shrinking to fit into someone else's idea of you will never bring you peace. The real growth begins the day you stop apologizing for taking up space. When you choose yourself, you stop fighting for attention from people who do not see you. You stop explaining yourself to those who are not interested in understanding you. Instead, you start pouring your energy into places that nourish you. You invest in people who meet you with respect. You build a life that reflects your truth rather than your fears. And in that process, you bloom, not all at once, but gently, steadily, authentically. You begin to feel your own power again. Choosing yourself first also teaches you something deeply important. The right people do not need you to beg for belonging. They recognize your worth without you having to perform for it. They welcome your voice, your spirit, and your presence without hesitation. When you stand in your truth, the right connections form naturally. They are built on sincerity, not desperation. Growth doesn't come from chasing acceptance, it comes from honoring yourself. And once you see how your life transforms when you stop begging and start blooming, you will never return to the places where you once had to justify your right to be. Every person walks through life carrying an energy that speaks long before their words do. You may not notice it in the moment, but the world reads you, responds to you, and mirrors back to you the tone you live in. When you move with desperation, when you cling, chase, or beg, life sends you situations that reflect that same instability. People take advantage, circumstances drain you, and confusion follows you everywhere. But when your spirit carries peace, when you are rooted in who you are, the things that come toward you arrive with a different kind of dignity. You begin to attract what supports you instead of what exhausts you. The truth is, most people are unaware of the energy they project. They say they want respect, yet they tolerate disrespect. They say they want love, yet they cling to anything that doesn't feel like loneliness. They say they want peace, yet they chase situations that disrupt every corner of their spirit. And then they wonder why life keeps handing them the same lessons wrapped in different names. But energy doesn't lie. It tells the world what you believe you deserve. And life simply answers what you announce through your actions, not your hopes. Carrying peace does not mean you walk through the world untouched by problems. It means you move through life without letting those problems define your worth. Peace comes from knowing that not everything requires your reaction, your explanation, or your constant involvement. It's the understanding that some storms are better observed than entered. When you develop that kind of inner steadiness, you stop acting out of fear. You stop rushing into places that do not honor you. You stop attaching yourself to people who treat you like an option. Instead, you begin to choose with intention. You begin to speak from clarity. And that shift alone changes how life responds to you. On the other hand, desperation invites chaos. When you operate from fear of being alone, fear of missing out, or fear of not being enough, you end up attracting people who feed on that vulnerability. They come not to uplift you, but to use you. They sense the gaps in your confidence and step into them for their own gain. Desperation blinds you to red flags and makes you tolerate behavior you would never accept if you were standing firmly in your truth. And over time, it chips away at your spirit until you barely recognize yourself. But the moment you begin to heal even a little, your energy changes. You stop chasing and start observing. You stop begging and start choosing. You begin to see the difference between someone who values you and someone who only values what you give them. Peace sharpens your clarity, and with clarity, you make better decisions, not louder ones. The energy you carry is your announcement to the world. When you walk with peace, you attract people who move with intention. When you walk with self-respect, you invite respect back into your life. And when you decide that your spirit deserves calm, the world will stop sending you chaos disguised as companionship. There comes a moment when you finally understand that not every door is meant for you to knock on. Some doors stay closed because they were never built for you. Some refuse to open because what's behind them cannot carry the weight of your spirit. Yet so many people move through life believing they have to force every opportunity, convince every person, and chase every chance. They exhaust themselves trying to fit into places that would only shrink them. But the truth is, the right doors do not require pounding, pleading, or proving. They recognize you. They open in response to your growth, not your desperation. When you rise within yourself, when you elevate your confidence, your standards, your habits, your mindset, you begin to align with opportunities that match who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Life has a quiet way of rearranging itself when you grow. People who once ignored you suddenly notice you, not because you chased them, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that once needed their approval. Situations that felt impossible begin to shift as you step into a stronger, clearer identity. Elevation is not loud, it is an internal shift that transforms the world around you. Many people waste years knocking on doors that would only lead them into rooms that limit their potential. They chase after jobs that don't respect them, friendships that don't uplift them, and relationships that only confuse them. They believe that persistence alone will eventually break open the opportunity. But sometimes the greatest blessing is the door that refuses to open. Sometimes that closed door is protecting you from a smaller life, a smaller version of yourself, or a path that would have dimmed your light. When you stop forcing and start growing, you discover that life has better doors waiting, doors you didn't even know existed. Elevation brings alignment, because who you are internally becomes the compass for what appears externally. When you elevate your self-respect, you stop accepting disrespect. When you elevate your standards, you stop entertaining situations that drain you. When you elevate your vision, you stop choosing things that keep you stuck. As you rise, your energy shifts, your choices sharpen, and your path clears. And the world responds to that shift without you having to beg or scream for recognition. Some doors open not because you knocked, but because you became someone who belongs behind them. You stepped into a version of yourself capable of carrying the blessings, responsibilities, and opportunities waiting there. This is why rushing or forcing life never works. You cannot enter a door meant for your future while standing in the mindset of your past. You don't need every door. You need the door that leads you where your spirit can grow. And the moment you rise, truly rise into your strength, your truth, your worth, the doors meant for you swing open with ease. Not because you chased them, but because you finally became aligned with what was always waiting for you. There comes a time when you must stop treating rejection like a punishment. Too many hearts walk around carrying the weight of things that did not work out, believing that life singled them out for disappointment. They replay moments where someone said no, walked away, or chose another direction, and they make those moments the measure of their worth. But rejection is not a curse. It is often the clearest sign that you were being pushed away from something that would have kept you small, unseen, or misunderstood. Life has a way of removing what your soul has already outgrown, even when your mind is still trying to hold on. The painful truth is that sometimes we want things that cannot carry us where we are meant to go. We want relationships that limit our growth, jobs that suffocate our potential, or friendships that drain our joy. We hold on out of familiarity rather than fulfillment. And when those things fall apart, we mistake the ending for failure. But endings can be sacred. They can be the doorway to a fuller, freer version of yourself. What feels like loss in the moment is often protection in disguise. Not everything that walks away from you is worth chasing. Not every opportunity that slips through your fingers was meant to stay. Rejection has a way of clearing the path, removing what no longer matches who you are becoming. It strips away the situations that cannot meet your future, And though it may sting, it forces you to confront a truth you might have ignored. Your soul has moved on, even if your habits haven't. When something leaves your life, it often creates the space for something wiser, calmer, and more aligned to find you. Many people cling to what they've outgrown because they fear the unknown. They stay in the same rooms with the same people, repeating the same patterns, because it feels safer than walking into uncertainty. But life refuses to let you stay somewhere your spirit no longer fits, so it will close doors, shift relationships, and disrupt routines until you pay attention. What feels like rejection is often life saying, you are ready for more, even if you don't see it yet. Rejection also teaches you to trust yourself. It forces you to reflect on your own needs, your own boundaries, and your own value. When something or someone leaves your life, you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it reshape you. You can see it as a sign that you are not enough, or you can recognize it as confirmation that you deserve better. The difference lies in how you choose to view the moment. Life is far wiser than we often give it credit for. It clears away what blocks your growth, even when you're still trying to hold on. One day, you look back and realize that the very thing you cried over was the thing that made room for your healing, your peace, your elevation. Rejection was never a curse. It was a redirection leading you toward the life that was waiting for you all along. There comes a point in life when you must understand that everything begins with how you see yourself. A heart that knows its worth is not easily shaken. It does not crumble because someone failed to appreciate it, nor does it shrink because life took longer than expected to bring the right people or opportunities. When you know your worth, you walk through the world with a quiet confidence that cannot be stolen, no matter who stays or leaves. You recognize that you are not defined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself. That kind of self-respect keeps you from settling for less than you deserve. A person who carries self-love is never truly empty. Even when life becomes difficult, even when disappointments arrive, there is still something steady inside them. They know how to comfort themselves, how to rebuild, how to move forward without losing who they are. Self-love does not prevent hurt, but it keeps hurt from destroying you. It gives you a foundation strong enough to withstand rejection, change, and uncertainty. It reminds you that your value does not disappear just because things didn't turn out the way you hoped. Many people believe they have nothing to offer because they were made to feel small by someone else's inability to see their worth. They were told, directly or indirectly, that they were replaceable, unimportant, or easy to overlook. And after hearing that long enough, they start to believe it. But the truth is this: anyone who cannot recognize your value is simply not qualified to define it. Their limited vision does not diminish your light. Their inability to appreciate you does not make you any less deserving of love, respect, or kindness. When you carry self-love, you no longer measure your value by who chooses you. You stop chasing people who treat your presence casually. You stop bending to be liked, shrinking to be accepted, or sacrificing your needs to avoid being alone. Instead, you begin to understand that your love, your loyalty, your compassion, your strength, these are gifts. They are not things to be handed out freely to those who misuse them. They are meant for people who see them, honor them, and reciprocate them. A heart that knows its own worth moves with intention. It builds connections that feel safe rather than chaotic. It chooses relationships that encourage growth rather than demand sacrifice. It offers love without losing itself. And the beauty of knowing your worth is that people can feel it. They sense your confidence, your clarity, and your standards. They know you are not someone who can be taken for granted. That alone changes the kind of energy you attract. Self-love is not arrogance, it is not selfishness. It is simply the understanding that you deserve the same care, respect, and compassion that you so freely give to others. And when you hold that truth close to your heart, you will never walk into any room empty-handed. You will always have something to offer, your strength, your wisdom, your presence, because self-love keeps your spirit full. There comes a moment when you must understand that your presence is far more powerful than your pursuit. Many people live their lives believing they must chase everything they want: people, opportunities, approval, security. They think that if they do not run hard enough, something better will slip away. But real attraction does not come from frantic effort. It comes from authenticity. It comes from standing fully in who you are instead of trying to convince the world to accept you. When you begin to realize that being yourself is your greatest magnet, you stop begging for attention and start commanding it without saying a word. Begging, whether for love or respect, always leads you into situations built on imbalance. When you beg, you place yourself beneath the very thing you hope to gain. You make someone else the authority over your value. And once you give that power away, it becomes easy for others to misuse it. They know you will tolerate more than you should because you are afraid to lose them. But there is nothing worse than losing yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. When you attract by being, you let the world see the truth of who you are. You stop adjusting your personality or shrinking your light to be accepted. You let people choose you for the real you, not for the version you created to keep them close. Rising is a different kind of movement. It is not loud, it is not frantic, it is not desperate. Rising is the process of improving your life from the inside out. It is the decision to grow your confidence, strengthen your boundaries, elevate your habits, and honor your worth. When you rise, you attract from a higher level. The people who were once drawn to your insecurities no longer have access to you. The situations that once drained you no longer appeal to you. Rising changes your environment because it changes your standard. Running, on the other hand, is what people do when they fear they are not enough. They chase validation, hoping that if they move fast enough, they can outrun their insecurities. But running only leads to exhaustion. It pushes you into relationships and opportunities that are not aligned with your purpose. It makes you settle for what is convenient instead of what is right. And eventually, you discover that no matter how hard you run, you cannot force something to belong in your life if it was never meant to stay. The moment you stop running and start rising, everything begins to shift. You find yourself stepping into rooms you once felt unworthy of entering. You notice doors opening without you knocking. You meet people who respect you without you having to prove anything. You attract opportunities that match your growth, not your fear. This is what happens when you choose elevation over desperation. Attracting by being requires courage. It requires you to trust that who you are is enough, that you do not need to chase love, opportunity, or acceptance. Rising requires patience, discipline, and faith. But once you learn to live this way, you will never again waste your energy begging for what should meet you halfway. You become someone who draws life toward you simply by showing up as your true rising self.